Welcome to the Homeschool High School Podcast, brought to you by Seven Sisters Homeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. I'm Vicki, and I am here to talk about a special request topic. So, several of the moms in our homeschool Facebook group we're looking at posts that we have been sharing about homeschoolers when they graduate, the college search, how to choose college, how to get ready for college, emotionally preparing our teens for college. So we have all of this content about how to get our teens ready to head off to the next part of life. On the other hand, we don't have anything really for moms and how to handle being a mom when your kid heads off to the next part of life, especially for teens who are going away to college or going away to a trade school. They're going to go somewhere else, so they won't be under the roof. And that sometimes can be such a unusual transition, for us, especially as homeschool moms, because we've been doing this with all of our intention and all of our energy for as many years as we've been homeschooling. So all of a sudden things are changing. So let's talk about this. So what happens to homeschool moms when their homeschoolers graduate? So, all right, first thing you need to know is there's not one kind of homeschool graduate. And there's not one kind of homeschool mom. So there's not one experience that you're going to have. But what I'm going to do is share some general experiences that, in my years and years and years of being a homeschool advisor and, being connected in the homeschool community and my own 5 kids. These are some experiences. Okay. All right. So let's start out with senior year. So one of the most frequent conversations that I have had with homeschool moms is, so how are we going to do this senior year stuff? So one of the things to do is to know, senior year is about your senior. So allow yourself to just kind of immerse yourself in that. What are the decisions we have to make? What are the resources we have to gather? What are the things that we got to cram into senior year, whether it's, family experiences that we want to have, or things that we've got to tuck away for when they go off to college or the mission field or whatever they're doing next. So we want to concentrate on the seniors. All right. So that way your brain doesn't have to say, well, what about me? And that's not being selfish or narcissistic thinking about you. It's just our brains need to concentrate on the senior. So, but also know that your brain's waiting for you to answer that question, what about me? And the time will come where you seriously lean into it. One of the things I have found is the scripture, it says in Proverbs that a man's mind plans his way, but God directs his path. Of course, we're homeschool moms. So a mom's mind plans her way and God directs our paths. All right. So really, okay. All right. So we could plan out our whole future for when our kids graduate, like what's going to happen with us. But if we roll those works over on God and trust him, he will start showing us next things little bit at a time or all at once, however he decides that he's going to do it. We can trust him that there is a next thing. Okay, so that's that. You can put that in mind. Have fun with senior year. Try to make it as much fun as you can. All right. Now, each of your kids, if you have more than one kid, you are likely to have a different experience when each of them goes off to college. So, or wherever they're going, if they're going away, that senior year and beyond is likely to be different. Okay. So let's say your first kid. So your oldest is going off to college. All right. So you are wrapping up senior year. It's summertime right before they go to college, and you are having lots of feelings. So I have, when, in my years of academic advising, I worked with so many moms that were just with their oldest, like so high anxiety, because one, they've never not been in charge of their kid. Like their education, they had to make sure the math was done, the book lists were done, the credits were earned, and all of a sudden that's not going to be there. And it's going to feel really weird. So when you think about that summer and launching them off, this is totally uncharted territory. Like for that day, when the new year starts with your younger kids, that oldest kid will be off doing their own thing. And you're not going to be in charge of it, and you're not going to have that responsibility. It just feels weird. It feels like you left something behind. You lost something. So we moms want to be really, really self-aware, like investigate your own physical and emotional feelings and respect them, but also let them be under the care of God and our own self-awareness. So I often give the cheesy, do your 3 W's every day. And so what are the 3 W's? First W is, what am I feeling? So you say, you know what, I'm feeling weird and at odds and anxious because I don't know what to do with myself. I'm not used to this place in life, and so that's what I'm feeling. And why am I feeling that way? Because I haven't ever been here before. I don't know what to do with this. All right, and the third W is, what am I going to do about it? So we want to respect our feelings as moms. Those are real feelings, and there's always a reason why we feel them. And we always want to be in charge of what we do with those feelings, just like it says in scripture, to take our thoughts captive to Christ. We want to take those feelings, respect them, but then take them captive to healthy choices. So we want to make the good, the present good. Does that make sense? So we choose to make the present a good thing. And that helps that third W. So what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? What am I going to do about it? If you practice that every day, just give yourself a minute and sit down and ask yourself the 3 W's. What you'll find is you don't feel quite as at loose ends. At least you know what's going on inside you. So you don't have to be afraid of that, okay? All right. And then what you do next is part of the what am I going to do about it is you model resiliency. So you make up your mind. I am going to show my younger kids and my teen who's getting ready to go off to college or wherever. I'm going to model that I am a resilient person because they will catch that from me. So I've never been here before, but we'll figure out how to handle life, or I believe that God's directing our paths, or good things are coming along the pike. So you say you model for yourself and for the youngers that you will bounce back, that good things are going to happen, even if it feels strange right now. So that is a gift that you give the whole family, including yourself. All right. So you are allowed, once you drop that kid off at college or wherever they're going, the military or wherever, you drop them off, and then you have to get in the car and go back home. You are totally allowed to cry the whole way home if that's what you need to do. And everybody, if that makes them uncomfortable, they need to get over it, because you've never been here before, and you've been a mom of that kid for their whole lives. And all of a sudden, they just launched into a different phase of life where you're now the mom who cares, but not the mom who's in charge. And so it's allowed to cry. You're going to miss them. And so give yourself some tears, and then you take a deep breath and you go make some good things happen. So there are good things to happen. All right. Then you get to the next kid. All right. So the next kid, you get to the second kid. If you've got more than one, you get to the second kid. And when it comes to their senior year, sometimes moms have told me, oh, I know what to expect now. I know what the feelings are going to be. So I'm not so freaked out about it. It's a little bit easier. And so I will just kind of relax and enjoy the senior year. And I won't have any concerns at all because we've been there, done that. This one's going to be a lot easier. Some moms tell me, and this kind of worked this way for me, is because I remembered how strange it felt when the oldest one was a senior. The second kid, my brain always already knew that it was going to be kind of a challenging year emotionally for me. So I was already on alert. It was like, oh, here it comes. Kind of like if you have to get a tooth pulled and you've already had one pulled, and like, okay, we got to do this, but I know what to expect and it ain't fun. You get through it and it's good for you, but it ain't fun. So with second kids, if you're the type that were more like me and you're kind of just on alert because you've already been there, you want to really make sure you concentrate on making this year a good year. Like, lean into it. Let's make as many good memories as we can. Let's find the things to be joyful about and always be practicing those 3 W's. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? What am I going to do about it? So you really, really kind of get a chance to practice that self-awareness and the resiliency. Like, I know what to expect, but I also know I can make good things happen. I also know I can trust God through this process. So does that make sense? So second year, it might be easy or it might be harder. Now, third kid, if you have more than two, what the moms generally will tell me is that by the time you get to the third kid, you feel like a veteran. And so things aren't ruffling your feathers as much. And it feels like, okay, I got this. We know what to do. And you kind of work the process and it's not that big a deal. The tough one is when you get down there to the last kid. So if you've got more than 3 and you get to that last kid, or if kid number 3 or kid number 2 is the last kid in the line and graduating, that's a whole different experience, because what that says to us homeschool moms is we've been investing in our kids' education and preparing them for life for all these years. And all of a sudden, that job is completely coming to an end. Like we're about to get fired. This is hard, like this is identity crisis for us homeschool moms. And it genuinely is. It's like we homeschool moms tend to put our heart, body, and soul into homeschooling. And you get to that last kid and the whole senior year, we know this is the last time we fill out a FAFSA form. This is the last time we go for a portfolio review. This is the last time I ever have to grade, a test in my kids' math curriculum. So these are last times. They're joyful last times, but they're also sad last times. And so for us moms going through those last times, we're allowed to have some tears here and there, but we're not allowed to live in sorrow, because we want to treasure these last times. We want to hold them in our memories and we want to make them good. So keep those 3 W's going. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that way? What am I going to do about it? So that you're aware of you and you model resiliency. And you talk to yourself, or if you've got friends going through this, and you remind them that God didn't check out of the universe just because the last one's graduating. And, our seventh sister, Marilyn, always says that God's an economist. He doesn't waste things. And, he doesn't waste people. And, he does not have us on earth, and then our kids graduate. And then all of a sudden he says, well, done with that one. And just kind of tosses you in the trash can and you sit there until it's time for heaven. Like, that's really bad usefulness, like not good stewardship. And that's just not how God works. So I can remember one of my good friends when she got down to her last kid in the senior year. And she had been such a dedicated homeschool mom. And she worked with our co-op, with the littles, all the toddlers and all. And they adored her and she adored them. And so she was talking to me one day in that last year with her last kid being homeschooled. And she says, what's going to happen to me? I feel lost. And so when we were talking about, well, God's an economist. He doesn't waste things. He doesn't just dump us in the trash. We don't know anything, about what's going to happen next. But we do know that God's not just, leaving you gone, when the youngest graduates. So what she found is about 2 weeks before her youngest graduated, her pastor came to her and said that the church really wanted to start a daycare as an outreach in the neighborhood, and that they really needed somebody to be kind of like the visionary and train the staff and work with them on how to not just be good caregivers, because there were the state trainings for that, but how to be a connector, how to inspire kids, how to teach them to love learning and to make good community, and to show little ones that God loves them. Well, that was her gift. She had done that with our kids. My adult kids remember her. Um, so she goes, oh my goodness, it just resonated with her soul. And so for a number of years after the youngest graduated, she was training her staff there on how to be those inspiring daycare givers, and so they could outreach in the neighborhood in a way that wasn't just, oh, people are dropping their kids off and there's somebody on their phone all day, the kids are running around, but these kids were loved and were teaching each other and enjoying community, and the love of God. So it was the perfect next thing for her. So God always has next things if we leave our hearts open. As long as we keep rolling our works on him, he will direct our paths. All right. So also, a lot of times I've noticed, especially in recent years, that doors have already started opening earlier for a lot of homeschool moms these days. So they are already experiencing some part-time career kind of stuff, or volunteer stuff, or activities at church or in the community that can lead to the next part of life. And, and so they just being aware, that these are not wasted things, and that God may be directing their paths to go do more with this over time, and to so appreciate the things that they're already doing. For those who, like my friend who started working, with the church daycare, she had just been she had been a stay-at-home mom, active in the homeschool community and with her kids. And so that was her part-time, if you want to call it, work, even though she wasn't getting any paycheck on it. It was her part-time work, and that was her resume. So if she had to sit down and write a resume, she would have used that on her resume. So, for those of you moms who want to go do career-oriented things, when the youngest graduates, and you feel like, I don't have a resume. Oh, yes, you do. And so if you want to, go to Seven Sisters Homeschool and look up experiential resume. And we have a little how-to guide to help the teens to show their richness of activity in an experiential resume form. You can do the same thing. So even if you've been out of the workforce for a long time, your experiences matter. You're bringing a lot of wisdom to the table and a lot of good experiences. So you can capture that yourself on a resume. Okay. All right. Then some tips that moms have told me over time. And this comes from our adult kids who have graduated, things that they want us to know. So the kids have gone off to college and are discovering how to do their own adult life. These are some things that they have shared with me to share with moms. All right. Our teens, once they go off to college or mission field or military, we're not in charge of their lives anymore. And our job is to stand out of the way and pray. And that for a lot of us moms, that's a relief. And for some moms, we feel such a burden to make sure everything's okay that it's hard to let go of. like we have to let go and let God. And so you step back, and if you catch yourself giving unwanted or unasked for advice to your teen or telling them how they need to do stuff, like you zip it and wait till they ask. Now, once they ask for it. So, give as much, positive advice as you feel is in your heart to do, but you wait till they ask for it. Unless they're in a dangerous thing, then you're allowed to jump in and boss them around. Okay. Our adult kids need to feel loved no matter what they do, but not rescued necessarily. They just need to be loved. Like, we always love our kids. And so we want to make sure, even as adults, if they don't do things the way we think they should, that we love them and let them know that, even as adults. That our adult kids don't need to live up to our expectations, that they have their own paths to take, and God needs to direct their paths. So if they do things differently or don't do it right, we get to, again, let go and let God. Our adult kids don't ever outgrow the need for our listening ear. So if they come to us and want to talk, like, we make time for it. That's usually not too hard for us. All right. Then I get this kind of feedback from local homeschool organizations. So sometimes in our, in our organizations like co-ops and umbrella schools and homeschool, like support systems, they are looking forward to you becoming a Titus woman. The Titus 2 talks about the older women kind of mentoring the next generation. And sometimes they are happy for us to move on and make room for the next generation. So you want to kind of pray about it and be sensitive and say, if I'm to be a Titus 2 mom in these organizations, what does that look like at this stage? And to hold on to God's wisdom and look around at the norms of the group, talk to the other leaders in the group and say, what is needed out of me at this time? Because what we don't want to do is camp out somewhere that's familiar if God has us, should be doing something else. But if we are to stay on as Titus 2 mentors, we're there in a little bit different role very often. And sometimes they need you to stay on in charge for a while until they feel ready to transition. And I know our seven sister Marilyn in our umbrella school has stayed on in leadership there at our umbrella school for years, after her youngest has graduated, because that was just needed in the community, and her wisdom helps that plug along. And all of us seven sisters at Seven Sisters Homeschool, all of our kids have long graduated, but we stay active in the digital homeschool community and sometimes at conferences, as Titus 2, but not as we're in here running the show, because that's where we feel like God has put us. So that's a thing to think about, is sometimes our roles tweak and sometimes they change a lot. And it's best to let God direct those paths. Okay. However, no matter what happens, is God did not check out the universe, and he didn't drop us off on the side of the road and say, good luck to you. He has meaningful places and things and people for us to be involved with. So we want to look for that meaning, that purposeful feeling, that giving and that fun, that this part of life gets to really be part of. And also, when the last one graduates, you got to just cheer about this. You don't ever have to log another hour. You never have to make sure that went into the portfolio and on the transcript. Like, you are done with that. all these years you've been doing that. You don't have to do it anymore. Isn't that great? This is wonderful. That is so cool. So we have so much to celebrate when we watch our last one head off to college. And so you handle that. I always said when my youngest went off to college, I was going to spend the whole next day or two in bed drinking hot tea and reading books and just lollygagging around. And I was waiting for that day, you know. And when that day came, it sounded really boring and I didn't. So, you know, so again, God directed my paths. There was something more interesting to do that next day. And it never has happened yet, unless I had the flu or something. So, you know, it's different than sometimes we expect, and that's okay. All right. So if you have questions about homeschooling or what happens to you when your kids graduate, please join us at the Seven Sisters Homeschool Facebook group. There's such a lovely community that you can throw questions up there and all the Seventh Sisters can give their input because, you know, there's 6 of us, 7 sisters. So there's me and Sabrina and Kim and Marilyn and Allison and Sarah. That's 6. Who's the 7th sister? You are. So thank you for being 7th sister. We love doing homeschooling life together. We are all in this together, and that's really cool. Thanks to Seth Tillman for editing this podcast episode and for Richie Soares for transcribing. And thanks to the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. And this has been the Homeschool High School Podcast brought to you by that Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. We will see everybody next week.